Welcome to episode 76 with Gaff Guy. Time to learn all about gaffing and the journey into being, one of the top gaffers. That's not a sentence you ever heard before. Anyways, before we dive into the episode, just want to remind you about the totally free 4-day email course called 4 Gigs in 4 Days. Go sign up at 4gigsin4days.com. It all starts in October. Make sure to sign up before then. Hope you liked the episode. Time to learn about gaffing. Hello, everybody, and welcome to Discourse in Magic. My name is Jonah.
My name is Tyler.
And we are here with a very exciting guest. It's interesting how we find our guest. And this guy, I first found through Instagram, and then I think he got a shout out on Ryan Edwards' episode, and I think this is going to be a very interesting episode. This guy has made probably card gaffs that you have used. You might have held in your hand a gaff made by this guy. I'm very excited to dive in and talk about how he's doing, what he's doing, and how he's working for some of the biggest magic companies around. Here he is, Jeremy Hanrahan, Gaff Guy. How you doing, Jeremy?
Good, man. You?
We are doing doing really well. Yeah. It's a nice day under the sun moon. Hashtag recording this where the eclipse is. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. While everyone is outdoors ruining their retinas, we are indoors. Talking about magic. So Let's dive in. Jeremy, how did you get into magic, and then how did you get into gaffing?
Magic was a friend of mine from Hamilton who got me into it. He showed me a couple of tricks, and instant ego, I had to learn how it was done, and obsessive compulsive behavior set in, and I just became really good at it in a short period of time. More sleight of hand heavy, which is really weird for what I do for a living now, which is make gaffs and gaff decks and whatnot. But just reaching out to a lot of people through Instagram and Facebook, then it just grew.
You just immediately, you got
I dove into it,
and then it
was like, it was so weird. Yeah, it was like obsessive compulsive behavior, and I knew it was happening, but I just couldn't stop, because once you get that first, how do you do that, or how'd you do that, or oh my God, that looked really good, you get hooked on magic.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's totally relatable. I feel most magicians start with this burning passion, and they can't turn it off, and then you sort of find who you are as you perform and learn more. And you found that you are obsessed with the crafting and gaffing side of things. How did that transition happen?
Well, I ordered some card gaffs like everybody does in the mail, and I got them, and I was like new to magic, and I'm like, oh, this is great. And then I showed the magician that was kind of teaching me. His name's Graham Reed. And he was like,
we know he keeps coming up.
Hey, love it.
Amazing, yeah.
Shout out to amazing.
And he was like, that looks okay, I guess, but I would really stay away from using that, or you might get burned using that. And so I made a couple of them, and then I got a really badly cut stripper deck, so I went out and I bought a guillotine cutter and a hand corner rounder and went to work. And then Dan Morrissey from Morrissey Magic in Toronto, it's closed now, but that used to be my shop I used to go to all the time. He's like, yeah, we'll take a dozen of these off your hands. And then that's how it started.
Wow. So you are, have you always been a sort of like do it yourself, I'll do it in my hands, I'll build it like engineering type? Or was this sort of just, you were driven to the brink of anger with bad quality that you decided to just try your hand in it?
Yeah, I just wanted to see what else I can get away with making. And the next one I made was a Hofzinser card. And I sent that actually into Theory 11. And like in 3 days I had Dan White called me, and I'm like, oh my God, Dan White's talking to me. And then Jonathan Bain called me, the president and CEO of Theory 11. They're like, hey man, how many of these can you make? And I'm like, well, I don't know. How many do you want? Kind of tough guy talk. And he was like, we need like 3,000 of these. And I was like, and he's like, hello? And I'm like, hello? So that really took off. And then they were just like, hey, can you build this? Can you build this? And then I got to talk with Blake Voigt, and he was like, hey man, I got some projects I want to talk to you about. And so I just got really fortunate. Right place, right time, I think, where, I build the majority of Theory 11's gimmicks, which is great, because you get to know the guys and become friendly with them so they don't really kill me too much.
Yeah, and that's something we want to dive into is sort of building those relationships. And it's funny because one of the best ways to build relationships with some of the important magicians is to do good work. You know, we heard the same thing in Ryan Edwards' episode where it was like, you know, he was being contacted by all these guys left, right, and center because he was doing really, really good work. So,
Yeah.
I mean, it's interesting advice for people at home that one of the ways to reach all these people that are either your idols or just, you know, important people in the community to focus on doing good work. And then after you've done that, you focus on putting it in the hands of the right people. So what was that like? I mean, how does one go from buying a cutter, a slicer, to making 5,000 in I don't know how long?
Well, it's just mind blowing how a lot of people call me the Batman. Benny Chickering actually called me the Batman because I have all the cool equipment. But I think of myself as like the Henry Ford of the manufacturing end of it because I could take an idea and just replicate it 1,000 times. So I don't sit there and make like one flap card. I'll sit there and I'll glue together 1,000. Then I'll puncture 1,000. Then I'll cut the string. Wow. Then I'll, you know, and then it's just a process that I do, and it's just weird how you think about it. It's like one guy called me, I don't know if it's an insult or not, the Rain Man of gaffing. And it was like, I was like 427 matchsticks, but it's just when I see something, and trust me, there's been projects that I look at and I'm like, I can't make these fast, and I'll tell them why, and I just pass on them.
You're talking about batching the process with gaffing, which, by the way, just to pull out a little nugget for people that aren't gaffing, if you're trying to do basically anything, you can batch the processes. So if you're trying to, like, I don't know, send emails to clients, you can collect all the emails at once, and then you can send 30 emails at a time, and then you can, so just keeping that in mind, that batching is a really good thing to use, which we can take sort of directly from this. But I'm just wondering metrics, like how many cards can you gaff in a day? Like how many stripper decks can you really strip?
What's your day-to-day like? Like how many hours do you put in to make thousands of these things?
Well, yeah, it's crazy. Like this morning was a light day, and don't laugh at me. Like I got up, I was like really excited for the eclipse, but then I started making edge decks right away for Theory 11.
Yeah,
I did that until 11 because I got up at 5:30. Then at 11, and then I switched over to splitting some card backs for Murphy's Magic project that I'm working on, and I did about 1,000 card backs I split. And then I got a quick email from you guys saying that it was time. So I went outside and I looked around at the eclipse, and I'm like, that's cool. And I came back in. And then I'll get back at it, probably jump on. There's a project that I'm doing with Penguin I can't really talk about, but that's like the priority right now. That's the biggest number that we have to get out. And, you know, it's like 3,000 units.
Wow. I spent a day splitting backs once, and I got 4 done and ruined 6 decks of cards.
Well, Ryan can attest. Once you get, like, if you get a good deck going, you can split them. Like, it takes maybe, I don't even time myself anymore, but there's people that time themselves doing it, and I'm like, I don't know, I go by the thousands. So if I can get 1,000 done in like 3 or 4 hours, you just get going, and that's all I do, right? So,
So that's insane. That I mean, that you can put out those numbers of anything, like just anything in the world that anyone can do something 1,000 times in a day. Is just bananas. So
even if you're just practicing a double lift or something, 1,000 of them's a lot.
The number 1,000 is incredible. So props to you for that work. But obviously, I'm sure you enjoy it. I want to ask you about. You said that's all you do. So did you ever do magic, or sort of for how long did you have the magic bug before you went behind the scenes?
Yeah, I just more of a hobbyist really, and would do gigs and do stags and weddings and parties. Parties were a pretty big thing, but nothing like stage like Ryan does or anything like that. I just like the close-up personality of it. That's right underneath your nose, and my performance style was more like, I didn't really know how all this stuff was happening. I was more confused, if anything, and it was never a challenge or anything like that.
Right.
But once you get people telling you, like, oh my God, how'd you do that? Or you're fooling them with, like, an invisible deck.
Yeah.
Like, to me, the invisible deck is, like, the strongest deck of cards that I've ever...
It's pretty strong.
For sure, yeah.
Pretty strong track.
You can't open with it. That's
No.
most magicians, they want to do that first. I mean, new magicians want to do that first because you go in and it's just a foolproof. You know you're going to fool them, but then nothing you do after is even close to as magical as the invisible deck.
Yeah, exactly. And then speaking of those, like I make those for Penguin Magic, and those are like 3,000 or 4,000 at a time.
Like, what do you mean at a time? Like a day, or you mean like per order?
No. Sorry, an order per order. So, they'll be like, hey, we need 1,000 of these, 1,000 of these, and 1,000 of these, and they'll give me a time frame to do it, which is great, and then it just keeps me motivated to get those done. But you just bang them out. I do probably, when I'm on decks, I'll do maybe 288, 300 invisible decks a day, and it takes me about 56 seconds to sort an invisible deck.
Oh my gosh.
that math that you always thought that would never help you in life? You'd be like, why am I even learning it? It's actually math based just to separate it all.
Oh, like to put it in piles or shuffles or something?
Yeah, it's not even a pile. It's just what I do. And when people see me do it, they're like, what are you doing? I'm like, that's an invisible deck sorted. I spray it all, and then I put it together when I'm taking it off my drying racks.
Oh my gosh.
So
awesome.
I spray about 24 decks at a time.
Wow.
With the little mist setup that I have. Yeah, it's pretty funny.
So what do you tell? I know there's a little bit of a tangent, but magicians, when someone asks them what they do, they often dance around the subject. I know I do. Like, I tell people I'm a magician. I'm not afraid to say that, but often people like laugh, or weird things like that because they don't even believe that it's a real thing. When people ask you what you do, what do you tell them?
When I started doing magic, I used to say I make things disappear, or I make people disappear, or something like that, just as a joke. Usually I'll just show it to them. Most like, you got a toonie or something like that, and then I'll show them what I do. Like right now, I just say I'm a consultant, because if I have to explain that first of all, I split backs of cards, I put pieces of steel in them, then I glue them back together. The first question is why.
Yeah.
Right.
So, and you get the question too, like, do you know Chris Angel or do you know David Blaine? It's like, nope. Who are they? As a joke, right?
Yeah.
Like, who are those guys?
Yeah.
Those guys are like magicians on TV. I'm like, really? In Canada?
Magic on TV?
Yeah.
What?
Yeah,
Sorry, I'm from Canada. We don't have TV here.
Yeah, but it's just it's funny how people react. Or I'll be at Costco buying like 3,000 decks of cards, and they'll be like, "Oh, you got a gambling problem?" It's just like, no, why? It's like, well, you got all those cards. I'm like, well, yeah, the casinos supply them, so why would I be buying them, kind of thing. But then I'll open up a deck of cards, and then we'll at Costco have them shuffle it, and then I'll do like an ACR routine or something like that. And say, well, I'm a professional magician. This lasts me for about a week, and they're like, oh my god, you must be so good. And then it just gets a good laugh from my wife, because she's like looking out the corner of her eye going,
yeah.
Here with this guy.
Yeah, exactly. And it's funny because, like, the rest of us magicians thinks when we go to Costco and buy like 3 of the bulk cases that's a lot, but you're filling a cart with them.
You're like, I am buying at all of Costco right now.
Costco doesn't even care when you go there, because even to them that's such a small number, right? They're just like, how many you pick? It's more of I'm a pain in the butt to them when I go there.
Yeah. They're like, you should have told us. We have to order more.
Yeah, you should have came, because one time they wouldn't even let me take a lot, and I had to go back in. Yeah, and I had to go to Mississauga, I think it was, and clean them out too. But when they have their Christmas special on, $1 a deck, I just go in there and smile and say, I'll take everything you have in the back too.
They're like, no!
And they're just like, no, you won't. It's like, yeah, you're right.
You're like, what?
I take as much as I can.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So I wanted to dive into a little bit of an interesting spot here, which is that when we were talking about recording the podcast, you mentioned that you have basically like signed away your soul as to working with these companies and how you're doing what you're doing. Can you explain what that means as to what secrets you have to keep?
Oh, yeah.
And what are the secrets? No, I'm kidding. I'm joking.
Yeah, okay. Well, I got
you basically break all your agreement. No.
Yeah. Typically, I work under a non-disclosure agreement. It's gotten to the point now where a lot of these companies do trust me.
Right.
I never ask them anything that I know that they'll just be like, because you don't want to, have that moment of uncomfortableness between you and the owner of a company.
Right.
So I only ask the questions that are needed to build a certain thing.
Yeah.
And I rarely talk about what I build until it's out, just because it just saves a lot of my friends saying, hey man, what are you working on? It's just like this thing called the stripper deck.
Right.
But I can definitely talk about the things with them that I'm working on. Like Owen O'Hare is a huge builder out of Ireland. which we're coming out with a deck with called the Breather deck, and it's a huge project, and I love it. It's just taken us so much time to get here, just because we're both busy building other people's products, and that's what it comes down to too. Is like I build for 3 or 4 of the biggest companies in North America, and one in Italy now.
But you must have a great relationship with UPS.
Yeah, UPS, FedEx,
USPS,
Purelator, and they. It's funny when they show up. I like to do tricks to them, like the one deck that I'm working on right now with Penguin. I fooled all of them with, and it was pretty cool. I'm just like, yeah, it's been tested and approved by the FedEx guy. And I'm like,
that's funny. You put on the website, you're like best trick ever, best deck ever, FedEx guy.
Yeah. And I think the FedEx guy hates me because decks of cards weigh so much, and it's just can you put them in?
And you're shipping a lot at a time.
Yeah, and they're just like looking at me like, so you do know the rule that we have to actually offload all of our stuff? It's like, yeah, because I can't touch that. But I do help. DHL is also great too. But really just dealing with the trust issues too. Like, I never want to know anything that might get out by somebody else.
Right.
Like Lee McKenzie, he designs playing cards, and he's amazing. He's like, hey man, let me show you what I'm working on. It's like, nope, we're friends.
Nope.
I want to see it when it comes out on Kickstarter or whenever it does, just because I want to be surprised. And if it does get out, I don't want to be, you thinking, did you tell anybody? Just 6 of the closest friends of mine. That's it.
Right,
and it was actually on Instagram that I showed them. So maybe 12,000 people seen it, but it's just, I don't want to be put in that position. So.
Yeah, exactly. And you don't need to be thieving any ideas from anybody. You're already working with the best in the world,
Yeah, I'm thankful I got enough projects going into Christmas, and then we got Christmas rush, which is always a panic attack and a heart attack. I joke about that, but I've already had one heart attack. I don't want to have another one.
Oh my goodness. Okay, so tell us a little bit about that.
It hurt. It hurt a lot. No, just kidding. I was just lucky to be. I was lucky to be in Hamilton. They have the best cardiac. Yeah, I know. I grew up in Hamilton. Google it, guys. You'll see what it's like. And but they have the best cardiac care, and I was lucky to be in Hamilton that night that I had a heart attack, or I wouldn't have lived.
Wow.
Yeah, so nothing's really changed now. I'm back up to 16-hour days, but I'm not as stressed. It's just a different view on life, and a lot of people think, oh, this gaffer's doing this and this guy. We know each other. Like we're buddies. Like we talk. There's really no friction between gaffers that do it professionally. Like we always help each other. I'm like, hey, try this new glue. Hey, try this new tape. Right. Or one guy's like, hey, try this new edger. Or there's just a lot of camaraderie, which I love about it. There's no egos. There's no. Right. There's some competition and stuff like that, but it's funny. It's healthy.
It's the secret world of Magic's secret group. It's like a sub-layer of, there's like the people who do casino work, and then there's people who do stage, and there's people who do cardistry, and there's also gaffers, which is, I've never even spoken to someone who, labels themselves as a gaffer, which I think is an awesome title.
And to be doing it full time really shocked not only myself, but my family. Yeah. And it's just like, to own my own company, I never thought I would do that. And it's just fun. And when people contact me, like, how do you make this or how do you do that? I tell them. Or I'm like, hey man, you got time to Skype? And they're like, what?
Right.
I can't give back enough to the people that support me. And that's one of the reasons why I don't have a retail shop, is because I just can't keep up with the demand and the wholesale end of it.
Right. So you'd rather be a supplier than even have to worry about selling to people, because there's just so much coming in that you'd rather other people deal with that stuff. Yeah,
especially you guys know, like the emails that you guys get. Like in one day, amplify that times 7, then when do I have time to gaff, right?
Right.
Or I feel bad that I didn't get to respond to somebody like, hey, sorry you haven't gotten it yet, or this and that, or I'm dealing with Canada Post issues, and you guys know about that. And, it's just, there's a lot to run a retail business. And I give these guys credit that do it. Like Penguin Magic has so many, like look at their site. And it's just, how do you not screw up a lot? And they're just like, we have processes, and they're right. That's what I have. I have my own process that I build.
You are making a lot of orders per day for basically every single company, and you mentioned that you have a good relationship with the other gaffers. Are the other gaffers also making stuff for these companies, or are you the sole gaffer for many of these groups?
They do have several. I know Theory 11, I do the majority of their gaffs, card related and deck related. But there's just so much to do. Like I remember training two guys just to help out, and now they do it. So
Oh,
there's
wow.
really
Oh,
there's
wow,
like
that's super
no
cool.
there's no competition. It's just like,
Yeah.
people contact me like, hey, can you make me 500 of these? I don't want to sound like a jerk, but it's like, let me put you in touch with this guy. That's right in his
Yeah,
wheelhouse. Like he
exactly.
can bang out 500, no problem. And I vouch for him. I've trained him. And the guys are like, well, what do we owe you? It's just like nothing. Just put out good quality work and get these relationships, because there's not a lot of guys that do what I do.
Right.
I could maybe count on one hand the guys that do it professionally,
Yeah.
who I would buy stuff off of. And I'm always buying gaffs and checking them out and supporting other creators too. And it's just like, but I never give my opinion on a gaff unless I'm on the project, because
Right.
it's just like, hey, I would have built it like this, and they're like, you're an idiot. And it's just like, don't take it the wrong way. Like, I love criticism, because criticism only makes you better. And if you take it the wrong way, then maybe you shouldn't be doing it.
So
Right.
one of the things that I wanted to ask about, in terms of, gaffing is there's a few other gaffers. It's a very niche area, but you seem to be incredibly popular on Instagram. You have about 11,000 and some odd followers, and that's a huge number for magicians, and especially for somebody gaffing who can't really talk a lot about what they're doing, based on some contracts, and also the photos are cards and knives and scissors, right? Like that's what it has to be, because that's what you do, right? It's not like you're in front of the world's biggest audiences, or you're in the same drawing room every day. You're often doing projects that, whether you're gaffing them differently, it's going to look the same. It's going to look like the red back of a bike or the blue back of a bicycle deck. So how do you keep it interesting? How do you gather a following from basement gaffing?
Yeah. Basic gaffing 101. I think it's just because people want to know. They want to be in the know. They want to know how it's done. They see like a cool piece of equipment. They're like, oh my God, what do you use this for? And they PM me, or they ask me, point blank, like, you got to tell me how to make this stuff. It's like, okay, well, invest this, and this, and then I'll show you. And they're like, well, that's a lot of money. And it's just like, well, do you want to learn how to do it properly?
Right.
Then that's what you have to do. But if you want to start out really slow, then maybe check out this, and this. And my really close friend Jeremy Griffith, he's the one that pointed a lot of people at me with a shout out. And it's just the people that follow me are magicians, and they're not people that maybe want to do magic or they want to know how it's done. It's it's people that love magic. And I was actually pretty shocked to find out how much people wanted to learn about it.
Well, I guess it's a part of magic that isn't really talked about. There's a lot of books on how to build stage props. There's a lot of books on how to do sleight of hand, and there's a lot of DVDs that already come with the gaff that you need. But there isn't a resource for gaffing. You're sort of the only person I know on the internet who is talking about it. And the fact that you're willing to, actually converse one-on-one in direct messages with people on Instagram, I think that really must have, sort of helped bring the following in when they know you're an actual resource and not just some person posting photos.
Yeah, and they get to talk to me, or they get to ask me questions. I still laugh when people are like, oh my God, I can't believe you're talking to me. I'm like, why? Like, It's just, to be honest with you, I got lucky. And it just snowballed into this thing, and quality over quantity to begin with. And then when you get that good, then you move forward and you think of how to build out, thousands of them. I've had people constantly contact me saying, hey, man, you should contact this guy named Gaff Guy, and, maybe he can come and work for your company. It's just like, yeah, I'll have to look into that. But
That's the funniest thing ever.
A lot of people don't realize I'm the same guy. And it's kind of funny when you think about that. But to be honest with you, people don't care about me. They care about what I'm working on, and that I do it. They're more focused on the projects.
I will say that it might be the positioning of how you've unfolded it. Like I would just say, like, don't be afraid of them possibly wanting to like you. They might, but I will say that I'm sure that you're right in the sense of they are wildly interested by what's going on with the cards themselves. But I will say, don't be afraid to show your identity, whether you're the Batman of gaffing, gaff guy, or you're Jeremy. The world might want to see who you are, and it's funny.
You're legitimately Batman because like you have Gaff Guy and Jeremy, who's Bruce Wayne.
Yeah, exactly.
They're both kind of famous. So.
Well, that was basically what I was going to say. Is there was a point when we were trading messages back and forth about coming on the podcast, and I was like,
"Oh shit, that's who you are."
No, never mind that. I was like, "What is this guy's name? Like, is this like? Am I going to be able to find this online?" And it was on your about page. It wasn't so difficult to find, but. Like, it was sort of Gaff Guy, and there's very few magic icons that are nameless so much. Like, some examples are like the Masked Magician or like Piff, or like, but there really aren't that many secret people in the magic community.
A few. Dynamo, Spidey.
Spidey's awesome. Yeah, Spidey's awesome.
Yeah. I guess. Anyways, I just noticed that it was a real name, like people call you Gaff Guy.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, it was funny, and this is a real true story. I was in Hamilton again because that's where I hang out.
Bummer, dude.
I was making fun of your hometown this whole time.
I was at the Upper James Walmart, and a kid walked up to me and said, "Oh my God, you're Gaff Guy," and
crazy.
I looked at him and went, "Who's that?"
Got him.
And I smiled. I said, "Yeah," and I said, "But you got to watch out too because these kids are approaching you, and I'm a grown ass man, and their parents are looking at me. It's like he does magic. I built some magic props, but yeah, that was kind of funny. And of course, no one was around to see it. I didn't even bother telling my wife because she would have been like, "Yeah, whatever."
You're like, okay, someone
like,
recognizes.
Is that why
what? They recognize your hands?
Yeah. Is that why you're outside waiting to come in because your head was so big to get through the door? But yeah, it's crazy. It's just the amount of projects out there and the amount of people that, like, if you ever want to learn, give me a call. Like we're coming out with a download series with, I guess I can say it. Yeah, why not? Penguin Magic.
Screw it, you signed.
No, that's not on a non-disclosure yet. But we've been working at that for like 6 months, and it's going to be like, this is everything you need to do to make split backs, split faces, horizontal.
Wow.
All the glue you need, even as dumb as how to sand, roller. People are like, where do you get a little roller? Don't bother buying a little rolling pin. I used to use the little Elmer's bottle, to use as a roller, to save me some money when I first started. So, and I get a kick out of that. It's like a remember when.
Mm-hmm. Right, that's awesome.
So I was just going to ask if someone is a young budding magician wanting to do some of their own gaffing. I was going to say, where would you point them? So is the answer that project which is coming out soon, or is the answer something as simple as DM you, or as simple as you have a resource for them right now?
Yeah, even if you just wanted to contact me, or even just watch some of my Instagrams. I think I have a video of me splitting cards on there, or I don't like to plug. The last thing I want to do is plug myself. But there's a download up on Penguin Magic on just how to split cards and to make a double backer.
Oh, awesome.
That's just how simple it is to start. Even watching, I've even sent it out to non-magicians, this second gaffing series, to see if they can learn, and they're actually learning how to split cards, which is really funny to see a person that's not a magician go, why would I want to do this? Just I want to see how to do it, kind of thing, right? Or if they can do it, if it's explained properly, because I don't want to just put out crap. And there's no fancy glittery spotlight or cool music, or I invested in a nice camera and I got a nice Rode mic and all that. But other than that, it's just bare grit. This is what you need to do. Yeah, this is what you need to do to make a gaff. A lot of people didn't notice sand cardstock because why does my stuff look all bubbly? Did you sand the cardstock before you glued it?
Right.
Oh, no. That's why.
You just answered a huge question of mine. I thought I just sucked. There you go.
Yeah. No, and you got to, like you said, if you do it 1,000 times, you'll be good. You'll be good at it. Do you want to do it? Hell no. You'd rather just spend the $5 to buy the card.
Exactly. And oftentimes that's exactly what what one should do. Other people want to be the hands-on type and they want to learn how to build it, and other people want to be the practitioners, I guess, and they want to just get out there and start doing it. And both are good. And I'm using that as a little bit of a transition, because one of the things that excites me so much about what you do is that, there's a lot of people at home who have interests in different aspects of magic. So I like highlighting people who are doing interesting things in magic that aren't necessarily performing. People say I can perform, but I'm not so good at being creative. And some people say, I'm really good at thinking of big picture, but I'm not so good at, the hand to hand. But it's good to have someone who's saying I just actually picked ripping cards apart and putting them back together as the part that I'm good at. And you don't have to, nor should you feel bad about the lack of whatever other types of magic that you're not doing, right? And I just almost to use this as a little bit of inspiration for people who are sort of finding the parts of magic that they like. And one of the things that we encourage on this podcast is just to get some sort of benefit out of your magic, and whether that means taking up gaffing and making some money off it, or taking up gaffing so you can have a nice practice for yourself, or it means getting out there and performing, or it means getting hired, or whatever the case may be. So just wanted to highlight that there's somebody who can do something that is different than just performing with their magic background.
Exactly. If you would have told me 3 or 4 years ago that I'd be splitting cards for a living, I would have laughed. Because I left a pretty good field to get into, to just, get into it, take a chance. My wife's like, you know what, you already had a heart attack, do it full time. If it works, great. If it doesn't, then we'll figure something out. And that's the biggest support right there, is when your wife is like, just do it. You know what? Sink or swim,
awesome.
Go.
It's huge. It's actually huge.
I had awesome friends in the industry. Yeah, feed me and say, here, do this, do this, do this. And, Penguin Magic and Theory 11 have been huge in my development. And, yeah, but now it's getting to the point now is I have to hire people to build my magic to sell,
right.
As, Officer Poker, or I have a flap card project coming out, which basically alleviates the crease concern. And actually a spectator told me, well, why don't you just say this? And I'm like, wow, can I use that? And I built on that. It's funny that I would rather build people's effects on my own, because I could put so much into it, and I hate toot my own horn, or I hate asking for the sale at the end of it.
Yeah, I totally can relate to that. I love workshopping shows with and for other magicians. It's very hard for me to sit down and think, what do I want to do? But when someone tells me they have an idea, it's really fun for me to run with that, and I get more invested in it.
Well, it's like Ryan Edwards. Him and I are friends. We live 20 minutes away from each other. And he's like, hey, I got an idea. And I'm like, what's that? And he goes, exotic skins on card clips. What do you think? I'm like, absolutely, brother. Do you need any help starting? Do you need this? Do you need that? He goes, no. What do you think? I said, I think if you want to do it, do it. And the next I heard, it was he just exploded. And he had the same problem I had. He's like, how do you keep up with all the orders? I said, stop talking to me on the phone and get back to work. That's how you keep up with it, right? But it's just good
answer.
But sadly, we hardly see each other. We'll send each other a text once a month. Hey, man, what's going on? I'm moving to Las Vegas. I'm like, great, see you later. Or now I have a place to stay when I go out there, or something like that. Or, hey, man, is this you? Did you build this? It's like, yeah, we're doing this and this and this. Can you send me one? No, buy everybody else as a joke, right? But it's just fun to see someone that took a chance too, and is huge now. It's huge. And he also performs, so he's both sides of it. I've seen his show, and to actually see him go from how he used to be when he first started to see him now, oh man, he's just a giant. It's just I watch him perform, I'm like, that's not the same guy that I went out for supper with 3 days ago.
Yeah.
Like
and never mind both sides of it, all three sides of it. Like not only does he make the props and perform, but he also sells them on his website, right? Like so he's also actually doing that like marketing part as well, and he sells them to the big companies.
I said he should change his name to Sold Out because all his stuff is always sold out, right?
That's really funny.
It's like, hey man, I'm coming up with this new card clip. I'm like, why'd you even tell me that, man? Because you're probably already sold out.
It's called Sold Out.
Yeah, it's called Sold Out. You can't get this. You know, and he'll be like, "What are you working on?" He's like, nothing important." You know, because I always want to hear
cutting up cards.
Yeah, I just always want to hear, of what someone else is doing. You know, because to me it just gets boring. It's like blah 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 blah. You know, but when I do
it all the time, right?
Yeah, but when I do see a new project, I'm like, what? It's like, do you want to build this? I'm like, who created this? Here's his email, and I'll contact them and say, hey, I might be one of the builders on this. Can you just go over? And then they have me. It's just, no, we got him. Yeah, he'll build this. Because the first thing I'm like, sorry, I can't build anything else because I'm too busy. And then I'm watching the videos. I'm saying that on the phone. I'm like, oh, I want to build this. Yeah, exactly. And Tim Trono is really bad for that with me. Tim Trono is one of the lead purchasers at Penguin Magic. And he's like, hey, man, I know you're busy, but, and they were all at Magic Live and making fun that I couldn't come because I'm always too busy. But they're like, yeah, you got to make it down sometime. I'm like, stop giving me work. But then it's like a double-edged sword, right? It's like if I leave, I'm the only one building this stuff. So bring it with you. I'm like, imagine explaining that to customs. So this X-Acto knife and all this steel shim in your bag, what's it for? Oh, I split cards for just come with us. It's just, how do you explain that?
So let me ask you some random gaff questions. If you can't answer any of them legally, just say so. And before
I'll swear.
Yeah, just swear or something, and then I'm going to bleep it out. I have a few random gaff questions. So the first is blank cards. Do they just not print it?
Correct.
And so I remember Bicycle had some. I mean, that's an obvious one, but I remember Bicycle had some qualms about them doing gaffing, so they sort of took their hands off some of it. I guess they didn't really have a problem with that.
They're back to doing it. Their back is the rider back 808 is trademarked. So if you want to alter anything, I believe on the back, you have to use either the maiden backs,
right,
or what's the other one?
The mandolin.
Mandolin, thank you. Backs to do that. Also, the jokers and the ace of spades can't be altered.
Right.
I think.
No, I think you're right. That's what we spoke to Lee Asher about a little while ago.
Yeah, so it's hard. Like you could do your own custom printing on it. You can't really replicate their backs at all because they'll sue you.
Right. So they can still.
I'm just kidding. I don't know if they'll sue you or not. Yeah, it's so small. They'd be like a little flea shoe Jeremy,
they
right?
Might not care. But they can still do stuff with it, and they do like print blanks.
Yes.
And do they don't print double backs for the reason why you said?
No, they print double backers of their own. So they do double backer red, double backer.
So how do you compete with a printer, or do you not do double backers? You do gaffs.
Well, I do them, but they can't make. I'm sure they could if they wanted to, but they can't make, say, a Monarch / red bicycle back.
Oh, right. You're not just doing pure bikes.
Yeah, or they couldn't do a diagonal split of a red Monarch, and they could if they wanted to print.
But they'd have to really make the print of it,
but they'd have to do a print run of all of them. Yeah,
they'd have to make a new template and everything to do it, right? Whereas
they would just be too much for them to do. That's why, like the most popular gaff pack, which is from the gaff guy, is. There's like usually 6 or 7 gaffs in there for the price of one.
Right.
So if you're like buying a flap card for $10, if you buy a gaff pack off of me, say in a Monarch back, you get like a Monarch Rising card, Hofstadter card, flap card, shim card, double backer, diagonal split, and a magnetic card, all for $10.
Wow.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and people are just like, why? Because I'm that wholesale mentality, right? Like I would love to sell 1,000 of them at say $10, then sell 20 of them at full retail $30 or $40.
Right.
So
and just get it in more people's hands.
Yeah, and plus I can make any gaff that I want, and I can have like the only Jerry's Nugget / Gold Monarch diagonal split back in the world.
Right.
on a, whatever face I want. Is just, it's fun to have huge combos.
Yeah, that's awesome. And I mean, what's so awesome about you making a double backer versus bicycle, which is that you can make any back with any back, and you can also make however many of them you want. You don't need to print full sheets of things. You're not tied to. I mean, you can make a quarter of one card and an eighth of another, whatever, right? Like,
Yeah. And there's no minimum requirement with me, right? There are
Right.
people contact me like, I need one card made. How much? It's like, you know what? Just don't even worry about it here.
Right.
And they're like, are you kidding me? It's just like, it's not even worth you sending me the PayPal.
Exactly.
Just, if you want to buy a stripper deck later on, if you see them for sale, then buy one.
Yeah, exactly.
If not, and I do believe it does come back to benefit you. A lot of people say this, the Magic community is like, no, everybody's lazy. And no, it's not that they're lazy. It's just they haven't really learned how to do it properly.
Yeah.
I believe if you're taught to do it properly, then you're going to want to do it. And if you get, like, say, the download series or buy anything of a download series of how to make it, you just make one or two and sell them to, your friends at the Magic Club. You just pay for the download.
Yeah.
And one of the downloads that I'll be teaching is how to make money at this.
Oh, wow.
Interesting.
Because I don't usually glue all my cards now. I, use dry mount.
Right.
So my card is a little bit more crisper. You can hot shot a card out of the deck of cards of mine that has that snap to it still.
Oh, wow.
And that's like a huge total investment as well.
Yeah.
So and a lot of trial and error.
So I once tried. Everyone sort of knows what a stripper deck is. For those of you that do, for those of you that don't, we won't tell you. I once tried a stripper deck that was like very, very fine.
Ultra thin.
Yeah, like ultra fine stripper deck, whatever. And I took a card, I reversed it, and I put it in the deck, and I lost it. And I was like, what? And that was basically it. And I gave it back to the guy, and I said, I lost the I lost the card somewhere in the deck. I don't know if it's the right or wrong way.
I think it was a 4.
Yeah, I was like, I didn't actually look at it, and the deck's not in order, so good luck. So tell me a little bit about that. Like, what does in terms of stripper deck, like, what size is like standard? What size is I want to make sure my audience doesn't notice even if they look? And then what size is you're being a little bit overprotective and it's going to be too difficult to use your stripper deck?
There's like a lot of people like will look at you when you do talk about stripper decks, and I'm glad you do know a lot about it. There's different degrees of cuts. It just goes about what your touch is, like what the feel of the deck is.
Right.
We were coming out with Slim Magic Co. He's from Quebec.
Right.
And he does some amazing work on stripper decks, negative strippers.
Like belly strippers and stuff.
Yeah, belly strippers, fine cut stuff, just like I do, but we're friends as well. And I love seeing his work, like the stuff that he does. Like he does juice work as well.
Wow. And
he is a craftsman as well. And then I look at what Owen O'Hare is doing with his cuts, and when you try and feel their work with having experience with the decks, you really appreciate it. You're almost like a nerd when you're smiling going, wow, this is pretty cool. But there's been some ultra fine decks that I can't even cut.
Right. So let's say, I mean, when I go to the hairstylist and I ask them to like buzz a part of my head, they're like, what number? And I'm like, I don't know, a 1, a 2, like I don't know how I'm feeling. Is there like a measurement? Like who would I call and say like, I'm looking for my stripper deck between a 1/4 of an inch and a 1/16 of an inch. Like what am I looking for to start figuring this out?
Well, the extra fine decks are usually, with me personally, are sanded. So the ultra fine is just more of a touch. Then if you want the fine cut, I use the stripper jig by Owen O'Hare to cut each card individually with a razor blade.
Right.
And then if you want the more medium, I don't do any over-exaggerated cuts unless it's for a specific project. Mm-hmm. But then I usually do what's called a medium cut, which is just under 0.5 millimeter tapered off of a stripper deck. And then each corner is hand cut, one card at a time.
Right.
Just so that if the spectator does get it and try and strip it, they won't be able to strip it.
Right.
Because they go right for the middle. My strippers are
into sorry to interject. If somebody walks into a Magic store and buys a random stripper deck, what size will that likely be in terms of them thinking, should I move up, should I move down?
It's probably a medium to heavy cut. It depends. Everybody right now, there used to be garbage stripper decks on the market, but ironically, because there's like 6 guys that hand make them, a lot of the quality has definitely come up, which is good.
Awesome.
Yeah, but it just goes basically on touch and feel. I know when we did the Sabrosa decks, that's a different cut stripper, and when I was sending samples to Jason England, he was like, "Nope, this is too fine.
Oh my God.
People aren't going to hit it." So then, but he was right. I couldn't get them either. But I could see the material being removed as I cut them. But then when I went to use them, I was like, I can't do these because I can't even do it.
That's so funny. Just being like, yeah, I made them. It's not good for human hands, but there's definitely a
godlike
difference.
hands.
Yeah.
But then they came out with a cool way of transitioning them from a practice deck to the fine deck, and we found doing that, where one was cut deeper than the other, they could make that transition.
Wow.
And I never would have thought of that. But that comes with their marketing expertise and knowing their customers.
Right.
That let's step them into let's start them off by driving a winter beater. Once they get used to that, then we'll put them into the Cadillac.
And sorry, who is that for? So if someone sort of wanted to transition,
That's with Theory 11.
Theory 11.
They came out with the project called Sabrosa.
Sabrosa.
Yeah, and it's one of those decks that when I brought it up saying, hey, we should maybe come out with this, the first response was, no, this is a secret that has to be protected.
Right.
Unless we do it right. And that, as dumb as it sounds, was like a 2-year process.
Wow.
To make them, to find the jigs that we wanted to use to cut them, to getting the right feel from Jason, to getting authorization from Jonathan. And it's just like, finally, when I got the email, we're rolling into production, it was like, yeah, okay, what are we doing?
Wow.
And then they had to tell me, this is what we want. And it's like, all right, everything got authorized and away we went.
Wow. That's crazy. It sort of seems like I'm hearing the inside scoop to what goes on behind the scenes and all. Like, it's just so strange to think that, like, in the other room I've got gimmicked cards, gaffed cards, and you probably made them, like you probably made them. And that's really cool. And I think it's pretty cool for the people at home, who've got funny looking cards that came in sets or something.
And made them by hand too. You
Yeah,
know what
exactly.
I mean? Like you actually sat there and made them. You didn't just design them and send them to China or whatever.
Like, it's one thing to get a deck of cards that somebody kickstarted and be like, wow, like they kickstarted this, but it's another one to be like, he cut the corner.
Yeah,
he
touched
split
it with his
swapped it out
skin,
for another
like-
color, changed the face, the number. So that is really, really cool. One of the things that Tyler and I were talking about is people, and I don't know how many, maybe because I'm not so in tune with America's Got Talent, but people end up on America's Got Talent with a gaffed card, which means your gaffed card could end up on one of those shows without being specific, obviously, for the integrity of people's things. Have you seen your gaffed cards on people on shows, whether it's America's Got Talent or Master of Illusion or Penn and Teller or whatever?
Yes. And I've seen them on the Tonight Show.
That is absolutely amazing. Oh, I think I know who that might be.
Yeah, I can't tell you who, but it was kind of like that. And they're like, hey, man, this is what we need this item for, and like stay tuned and watch at this time. And I'm like,
that's awesome.
Yeah, I'm like waiting up at night because I'm usually in bed early. And I was like waiting up at night, and I'm like, hold on, honey, watch this. And it was like 3 seconds. I'm like, yes! She's like, really? And I'm like, yep.
Sounds like the worst magic trick ever. Like, and that's my card.
Yeah. And now I feel like that clown on America's Got Talent, the one that's always sad because no one really knows what I do. But it's just like, she's like, who are you going to tell? I'm like, absolutely nobody. Nobody.
Awesome.
I can't tell anybody. But it goes back to too, like that was a process of like 5 months in advance that this person thought to do that.
Right. Yeah.
And a lot of people are like, hey, what are you working on now? It's like stuff that was authorized, 3 months ago, or stuff that has finally been, we had to wait for the technology to catch up with the trick.
So a lot of the things that you work on, do you find yourself, I mean, you already mentioned that you do like the 5,000 decks a day or whatever madness, but do you find yourself working a lot on like one-off projects like that where you're figuring out how to put something together for someone's one TV show spot and then never do it again? Companies
usually come to me with hey, this is this magician's project. This is how he built the gaff. Can we just kick around ideas on how to streamline it or to whether to leave it? 50% of the time it's like, hey, let's tweak it a bit and do this. And the other 50 is like, that's perfect. We can go right into production with this. But a lot of it comes from the teams that are actually at these companies that look at the trick and don't get me involved until the very end when they're like, this is what we thought of. This is the easiest, fastest way to build it. Did we miss anything? And it's usually like, nope, you actually got it. They're like, great, we need a certain amount of this by this time.
So they're doing most of the base work in terms of saying, like, even how the gaff should be set up and stuff like that. You're not doing a lot of the brainstorming. You're just a lot of the hands and then maybe, like, advising a little bit on notes.
Yeah, like we just did one now. That one I can't talk about. That we've been talking about for 3 months with the creator as well, trying to revamp it. But with that one, we had to test it on live audiences, the prototype, to make sure that it worked just as well as the original one. And I was actually performing with that, and I was, smiling all the time, like, wow, this actually works. This is great. This is great. This is great. Waiting for feedback from everybody else. They're like, yeah, here's your authorization. Go ahead and build them.
Awesome.
So it's not, it's kind of proud that there's so much work that goes into that. And people are like, oh, I just got my own one singular gimmick. Well, no, there's like 18 people that were involved into making that one thing. I was just the last guy to touch it.
Right.
That's why it's like, I'm part of a bigger team, and I work for so many different teams out there, and it's just so humbling. It's just great. And not a lot of people try and get their, like, oh no, you only work for us, you only do this, you only do that, because they know it's like, I can't, I'd have to say no to them.
I just wanted to ask, there's a lot of debate on whether or not magicians should use gaffs at all. Purists are a subgroup of the magic community. They think that it should all be sleight of hand. And I just want to hear Gaff Guy's response to the, if you can't do it with a normal deck of cards, you shouldn't do it at all statement.
If you're comfortable doing sleight of hand for your set, or you're a purist, then you do that. Don't tell people how to do their magic. Just do what you want to do and let other people do it. Like, they're not going to make you look any bad unless they're competing right beside you. I believe that gaffs do make magic more magical, but I also appreciate a good stage illusion, which I don't know how to do stage magic because I still want to be awed by stage magic.
Yeah.
And so just do whatever you want to do.
One of the last things that we do for every episode is we have a whole bunch of wrap-up questions. So the first is we each go through, me, Tyler, and you, Jeremy, and we mention one of our favorite parts or the most important part of the episode, like a little take-home point, because we've been talking for God knows how long, and they should be able to distill one moment. So for me, I thought it was just awesome how many you were doing a day, and it's just inspiring. I mean, you do like 1,000 of something a day. It's just inspiring how putting quality before quantity. Quantity is important, but to put quality first. We've had a lot of talks recently on this podcast about which to focus on. In a social media time, everyone wants to focus on quantity, and we've learned a lot recently about people who are talking about focusing on quality. So I thought that was an interesting take-home, that often it is quality, not quality instead of quantity, but quality before quantity, which I think is a really, really awesome message. Tyler, what about for you?
For me, I really liked the idea of doing it for yourself and, having the ego removed from it, and the idea that you fell in love with something, became obsessed with it, and were supported by someone enough to find a way to do it full time, which I just think is super inspiring.
Jeremy, what was your favorite part?
Just if you want to reach out to people and ask questions, that you can, especially to me. Like, if you have a question about a gaff or what you want to build or you need help, just send me an email.
That's awesome that just magicians in this world are very, very accessible. And that's one of the things that we learned ourselves from doing the podcast. Yeah, exactly. So another thing is to keep this podcast alive forever, we want an endless chain of magicians. So if each person on the episode recommends somebody else to be on the episode, then we'll never run out of people. So is there a magician in this world who you think we should desperately have on the podcast?
I would say there's 3 of them. You want to have 3 of them?
Go ahead.
Please.
Nicholas Lawrence.
Nice.
Awesome.
Kevin Rylick.
Nice.
Okay.
Yeah, the last one, Jeremy Griffith.
Awesome. We have.
Jeremy
I've
Griffith
reached
is
out
like
to
the
a couple of you.
Instagram. I'll call him after we hang up.
Awesome.
Yeah,
Amazing.
I'll set
Usually
that
the
up.
caveat is that you can connect us, but it sounds like you can.
Sounds
so
like you knew that.
that's awesome. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I'll get
and
all those guys to get in touch with you. They're great guys too.
Fantastic. And I will just mention for the people at home, what's really interesting is that you do actually listen to the podcast. So
I do.
You didn't even have to struggle to come up with people. Oh wait, I just thought a really interesting thing. Do you listen to the podcast while you gaff cards?
Yeah, that would be cool.
So
You can hear me
there's a
swear.
chance that I could have a card that's been gaffed by you while you were listening to the podcast. That's awesome.
You know
Probably
what?
not, but
No, listen, bud. A customer gave me the idea, and he was from Japan. He said, I went on Facebook and I streamed live building his gaff set.
that's sick.
Yeah, and then he gave me a number to write down on the envelope, so he knew that would be his gaff pack.
That's amazing.
And that was just, it was kind of weird, but it was like, he's like, you know what, man, you smell differently when you sleep. I'm like, what does that mean? It's like, where do you stop, right? It's just like,
what is going on?
but well, we thought about doing that. Watch your gaff pack. Yeah, but there's just the logistics would be a nightmare.
But anyways, just an awesome idea that someone could have a card gaffed while you were listening to an episode of the podcast. A Discourse in Magic a gaffed card.
Or we can make 300 of them. No, I was kidding.
Yeah, exactly. So there's two more sections left, actually three. The first is to plug. Is there anything that you want to plug? I know you're not usually the guy who does the direct sales, but anything you want to plug about gaffing, where people can find you, buy gaffs, or whatever the case may be?
I have Hobson's or Poker. That's an effect out,
Awesome.
which is pretty. It's always sold out, but I think Penguin has them. Murphy's Magic, I
Awesome.
believe, will be carrying them pretty soon as well. It's just to find the time. That's about it. I really hate plugging my own stuff, because I don't like to force feed people because I don't know people's style.
All right.
And one more part. You have millions of magicians listening.
At the very least.
At least. Is
That's
there
it?
anything? That's it. Yeah. Is there anything that you want to tell them?
Thanks for listening. No, it's just a lot of people are like, why aren't you on certain forums? It's because a lot of the stuff is, a lot of people fight with each other when they really shouldn't, because they wouldn't act like that if they were in the same room. Like if you actually watch videos from Magic Live, you get to see what camaraderie really is like.
Yeah, exactly.
Like watching Chris Kenner's party, like where all these
that looked incredible.
all these magicians come together in a room. You don't see any professionals bitching and barking at each other.
Yeah,
Just treat each other with respect and how you would like to be treated in a room full of people. Like one person emailed me a hateful thing because one of his gaffs were made incorrectly. And I sent him 3 of them to replace it. And I'm like, was it that big of a deal just to say, to call me that? Like, oh, hey, man, I'm so sorry. Can you build me this? Absolutely not.
The one other thing which we'll ask you is we're doing a question of the week. So is there something you basically have my viewers' ears and mouths? We'll post it on Instagram and let them comment. So do you have a question for an audience of magicians that you'd love to hear?
Yeah, just what type of gaffs would you like to see out there?
That's amazing. Your dream gaff. So
Your
other than
dream
that,
gaff.
big, huge thank you to Gaff Guy for coming on this episode and teaching us everything we needed to know about gaffs. And big thank you to everybody for tuning in. We will see you all next Thursday.
Take care, everyone.
Well, there you go, episode 76 with Gaff Guy. Now you know all about gaffing, and if you want to spend a life ripping apart cards and putting them back together, now you know how to do it. Now you can be like one of the pros. So big, huge shout out to Gaff Guy. Once again, a reminder to go sign up at 4gigsin4days.com. You're going to learn how to book 4 gigs in 4 days. It all starts October 3rd, which means that's when signups are over. So sign up before October 3rd, 4 gigs in 4 days. Do it. It's totally free. See you Thursday.